Welcome to Uncle's channel. Thanks for watching today, and let's talk about a really unique indie game out there called Death's Door. Every now and then, you just find a game that you truly love, and that's the case with today's game. Play style of the retro Zelda games that I absolutely adore, but a mix of more of the polished look than I've pretty much ever seen in an indie game. It's got heartwarming lore, amazing soundtrack, and a hero that you just can't help but root for. So today, let's break down Death's Door and just see why this game is so great. Now, the story follows a crow as a reaper of death who collects souls, and a soul has been stolen from the community here, and it's up to you to take the soul back, but it's now hidden behind a door that can only be opened once you've claimed 3 giant souls throughout your adventure. So now you journey throughout the land, defeating enemies, solving puzzles, and platforming until you've claimed all 3 of these giant souls in order to open the door back up. And while that base story is fine and all, the characters that the game is filled with to make the story come to life is phenomenal. Take the first giant soul that you must conquer, for example, the Witch of Urns. And while this could have easily just been her name and been a wicked witch who lived on a hill that you have to defeat in order to claim her soul, the game instead gives us a very different and heartwarming version. The Witch of Urns is actually just called Grandma. Grandma! I mean, come on. And Grandma just simply wanted her grandkids and her family to escape death, and so she tried mixing potions and spells to assist with this, but accidentally turned her kids' heads into pots. Her intentions were solid, but just had horrible results. Her own grandkids even assist you in trying to take her down because of what she's done to them. But afterwards, you attend her funeral where she's remembered by many names, but most importantly, she's just Grandma. Never have I been so intrigued. Humor, I mean, come on, she turned her grandkids into literal potheads, but saddened at defeating a core enemy in a game. And this is just a first boss. The game is extremely well written and reminds me a lot of a bit more emotional and darker Banjo-Kazooie type game. And that's just the story and the lore so far. Let's talk about exactly how this game is played. The combat is very solid. You have a core weapon that can be swapped out by finding up to 5 different other weapons, and you also have a distant attack like an arrow or a fireball, and more attacks can be added as the game progresses. You mainly use the melee attacks to take out the enemies, and use your distant attacks for more of the puzzles to open up new gates and passageways and shortcuts and things like that. The game is a very solid mix of the two, where one doesn't really outweigh the other too much, and the enemies are all well designed, and I love how many smaller bosses are hidden along the path to take out the core giant souls. I mean, you got these giant houses, you got these what look like the mimics of Dark Souls here. I mean, you just got a great mix of characters. But even though I compared one of the characters to a mimic, and the game is difficult and it's, got some soul aspects to it, it's definitely not a Dark Souls game. This is definitely more along the lines of a Zelda type game, just a little bit harder. However, even though the game is harder, there are some things they do to try to make the experience a little bit easier for more beginner players. For example, you don't lose your experience when you die, and you can cash in your experience points for upgrades to make your character more powerful throughout the game. Plus, all the puzzles that you solve stay solved even after you die. This makes the game a lot less frustrating than it could have been, but even when you do die, which like I said is going to happen, you don't really mind it all that much, because this is honestly the most beautiful dying scene I've ever seen in the game. It has the perfect font to see through back to the screen in which you died from, the most fitting music. I mean, it's just art. And honestly, throughout the entire game, you're going to continue thinking that this is just art. The font throughout the game when you encounter core bosses, art. The camera angles for emotional cutscenes, art. The hub world, how it contrasts that black and white, art. The game is just a work of art in so many ways, and I just love how it looks. The graphics aren't like, the highest tech or anything like that, but what they do with the engine that they have, it just creates one of the most polished and appealing to the eye games that I've ever come across. And now, while the game will probably only take you about 15 hours to finish, it's some of the most enjoyable 15 hours you'll ever have playing the game. And you might get lost a few times while you play it, but it's like the game knows the spots you might get lost in and throws NPCs to help guide you or to let you know that you're on the right path. And while the game doesn't have a ton of secrets to find after finishing the game or multiplayer or anything like that, I do think there's a lot of replayability because of the style and the humor. I would akin this to more of like a Paper Mario type game when it comes to that, because you replay those games because you love the characters and the story, and that's the reason you would replay this game. Yeah, the combat is fun and the adventure is fun, but the story and the look of the game is what pulls you back in. The game sells for $20, and honestly, it's worth every penny because you can't get an engrossing 15-hour story for less than $20. If you haven't given it a try yet, do yourself a favor and give the game a download. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. By all means, go out there, find a great game to play, and just simply have a great rest of the day.